All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Hawaii Retirement Show. Today we're joined with Dr. Rachel Inafuku. She's an economist with the Economic Research Organization at the University of Hawaii. Really stoked to get into this conversation. I always like talking about economics, especially when it pertains to Hawaii in particular. And so eager to jump in. We're going to talk about all sorts of stuff. We'll talk about UHERO, why Hawaii has less inequality than you'd think. We'll talk about the value of college and AI and a whole bunch of other stuff. But yeah, so I'll turn it over to you, Rachel, Dr. Inafuku. Thanks for joining us. If you want to introduce yourself and share anything you'd like with the listeners.
Sure, yeah. So, hi everyone. I'm Rachel Inafuku. I am an economist at UHERO. I focus mainly on labor and education policies in Hawaii. And just a little bit more about UHERO. We are the only think tank, basically, of its kind in the Pacific. And our main goal really is how do we improve Hawaii through public policy research. We have a whole team of economists and some other non-economist researchers. Um, and basically, what we do is we are funded through both private organizations and state organizations. We do unbiased economic research, and our goal is to help further the state of Hawaii. So we're for Hawaii.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it makes sense, right? Because for any decisions that are going to be made in the direction of where Hawaii goes, we need somebody who can bring the data and the research to suggest which direction to move in. I'm curious, do you folks uh, choose what type of topics you want to kind of research and look into? Or are you kind of approached with maybe some stuff from like other organizations or the state government or city
Yeah.
and county?
So both. I mean, what it usually looks like is, well, first of all, if we could research anything, that would be great, but data availability is a huge problem in the field, is that the things that we're interested in that we want to research may not always be super feasible or accessible. So kind of what it looks like most of the time is some organization or government agency will come to us with, hey, we have this problem that we're super interested. We want to know about brain drain, if the high skilled workers are leaving Hawaii, and how do we keep them here and increase employment in certain industries? Is there a way that we can do that? And we kind of talk through it, look at the data, think of potential research questions that we could do, and then our work helps influence whatever work other organizations are interested in.
Gotcha. Very cool. Yeah, I love the field of economics because I feel like it touches everything beyond. I think the average listener, you might think economics and you're thinking just the economy in terms of money, but like economics
Right.
covers so much more. It covers the environment, it covers like human behavior. I mean, it really it touches the
Yeah.
whole gambit, right?
Yeah, so like when I talk to high school students at career events and stuff, they think that what they learn in their intro to economics courses is what economics is, which is like stock market
Right,
type stuff, right? And truth be told, I have no idea about anything about the stock market. I don't know. That's
right.
not what I do. So really, economics is a study of what people do with limited resources. And if you think about it, anything is a resource, right? Like the air quality that we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat. And so there's all these different types of economists that specialize in very specific things. And not just money, but the ones that we hear about that are famous, like the Fed economists, those are the famous ones. So we just think economics is all about money and macro indicators and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting how it touches everything. For those who want to check out more about UHERO, there's a website, uhero.hawaii.edu. A lot of good stuff on there, including some of Rachel's work, which we'll get into now. And I think to kick it off, let's start with this piece that you had, why Hawaii has less inequality than you'd think. This jumped out to me, and this is actually why I reached out to you because I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Um, because I think my first impression was in a high cost of living state such as
Mhm.
Hawaii, there would probably be a big disparity in inequality in income,
Yeah,
right? And that wasn't the
yeah.
case. So if you want to just kind of yeah, kick us off. I don't know where we want to start with this, but
Yeah, sure. There's a lot to unpack. I mean, I think what I notice is doing this for several years now is that there's a gap between the narrative that a lot of locals, we grow up with that we see, right? So like I was born and raised here and I thought the same thing as you, like, oh yeah, there's plenty of inequality in Hawaii. Um, but then if you actually look at the data, then you kind of understand why things are the way they are. And so one of the things here in Hawaii is that we have these two things happening. So on the lower end of the spectrum, right, lower paid, lower skilled jobs, people actually make more in Hawaii compared to their mainland counterparts. And so part of that is because we're the most unionized state in the country, right? So we've got strong labor unions that help to uplift wages on the lower end. And then on the other hand, on the higher end of the income spectrum, people who have college degrees, bachelor's or highers, working in STEM, they're making a lot less than their mainland counterparts on the mainland, right? So I think one of the studies I did, we looked at how much people are making if they major in computer science in Hawaii, and you're basically taking a $20,000 pay cut on average, just by living here versus living in the average US state. So that's not even looking at the high tech states like different hubs in Seattle and Silicon Valley, right? Those pay drop-offs are going to be even greater. And so what we have is wage compression. So people on the top end are making less than their mainland counterparts. People on their bottom end are making a little bit more. And when you get that, then you get actually a little bit less inequality here in Hawaii than in other places in the mainland.
yeah, and it's so fascinating because you could jump to an assumption of, oh, this is a good thing, right? Because you just hear, well,
Yeah.
we don't have a lot of inequality. The problem is, and this is what I find so fascinating about economics, and the field that you're in, is that there's all these downstream consequences or just like outcomes because of certain conditions. And one of the ones around the inequality is that Hawaii is losing a lot of like the higher end, highly skilled employees are leaving for better opportunities in the mainland. And it'd be nice to keep them here, right? But
Yeah.
there's really no levers that we can pull other than bringing in, I don't know, like industries to kind of resolve that, right?
Yeah. So, oh God, that's another huge, long-winded problem. So, I like to think of this as like a chicken and the egg problem. So, on the one hand, we might not have a ton of high-skilled workers because they leave, right? And they, if you want to go into like some high-tech industry, our tech space is really small here. Our professional business services sector or professional business and technology services sector is half the size of the average state in the mainland. So that kind of gives you a picture of what the job outlook looks like for these people, right? And so on the one hand, the skilled workforce in that area will leave because they can't get a job here. But on the other hand, because we don't have the skilled workforce, then employers aren't incentivized to create these jobs and industries that will feed
Mm.
those people, right? So we have two opposing forces that are just working against each other. And that's kind of one of the problems that we see here. And the answer to that problem is not simple, right? So I see on Instagram a lot of times people are complaining about, oh, tourism sucks. Like, this is why we got to diversify in Hawaii. And we do, but it's difficult given our geographic positioning, right? So
Right.
we're like an island in the middle of the ocean. There's not a ton of incentive for companies to flock here. Um, Given our geographic isolation, which puts increased pressure on like shipping costs, and also recruiting the talent, right? If you think of why Silicon Valley is so successful, why it became such a tech hub, you have all these research universities around it, like Stanford, San Jose State, San Francisco, to pull from. But in Hawaii, we have one flagship research university, that's UH Manoa. right? And then several other smaller four-year colleges within the UH system, and then a couple private organizations. And so we're just a much smaller pond, which makes, and all of these things combined makes it hard for us to flourish in bringing up new industries. But that's actually something one of my colleagues is working on, and a project that hopefully we'll start to see some changes in the next decade or so. Who knows?
Okay. Yeah, and it's real easy to, from the outside, say, all this stuff is just so complicated and nuanced. It's not as easy as just saying, like you said, diversify the economy. And
Yeah.
uh, and I think every state, every country, you're kind of dealt with a hand, and you have strengths and weaknesses, and Hawaii has that. And you kind of, speaking not as the economist, you kind of just have to make the best with what you have, kind of, amplify your strengths and minimize your weaknesses, right?
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, so I think diversification in our state is not going to look like just bringing a random unrelated industry that thrives somewhere else here because our economy is so unique, right? We're like an island nation,
Mhm.
like some other small island economies like Thailand, we're similar to Okinawa in a sense. Jeju Island in Korea is another example. And so the things that are successful here aren't necessarily going to be successful in other places like California, Seattle, etc., um, and vice versa, right? And so it's about diversifying into things that make sense, that can flourish here, and not things that are successful in other places.
Right. Yeah, and I actually wanted to lead off with this. I forgot, but one point I wanted to make because we're going to get into a lot of stuff about college and the job market. And some people listening might say, "Well, I got a good job. I don't care," or "I'm out of the workforce. I'm entering retirement."
Yeah,
But I think it's all this stuff we're talking about is so important because everybody wants to live in a thriving society, right? Just because you've done well yourself, it's like that saying, "A rising tide lifts all boats," right? We want everybody to prosper, and we want an economic system here that
yeah,
that is prosperous for everybody, even if you are doing fine and this doesn't pertain to you, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. And yeah, I mean, the reason why I'm so passionate about my work is because living in Hawaii is hard.
Mm,
Like, the median job may not get you a house to own, you know?
right.
Um, Even something more than the median job won't get you home ownership in Hawaii. And so, if we want to think about like where do we want Hawaii to be in 10 years? What do we want it to look like? And I think for me, that's giving locals the ability to get high paying jobs and be able to thrive and stay here if they choose to.
Sure. Okay, so let's jump to there was a couple articles. One, and then I think you did a follow-up on it, entitled "What Happens After Job Training." Um, it's focused on wage and employment insights from Good Jobs Hawaii, and I'm not super familiar with it, so you can add some details. But Good Jobs Hawaii is a program that provides free job training in high demand fields such as healthcare and trades. And it's just designed. I think it's partnered or affiliated with the UH community colleges, and it's there to kind of help workers just move into better paying jobs, right?
Yeah, yeah. So this is a free non-credit short-term credential skills training program put on by the UH community colleges. And the whole goal of why they set this up is because they are focusing on these short-term credentials, so getting blueprint reading or a commercial truck driver's license, these types of things. Um, and it's in fields that are tend to be higher paying fields with higher career potential, and also are in high demand in our state. So, of course, the most popular one is healthcare, right? We have this aging population,
Mm,
and which means we're going to need a larger healthcare workforce to take care of them. And these healthcare jobs tend to be high paying. So basically, what we did was just look to see after a couple years of this program being out there, is it actually working? Are people actually getting better job placements afterwards? Um, and So far, the evidence shows yes, it actually did translate into people earning more on average after coming out of the program, and also going into industries that were aligned with their training.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah. And so I guess it kind of highlights too. I don't know how dialed in you are with the pulse of the job market, the unemployment rates and all that stuff here in Hawaii, but what it highlights to me is there are opportunities for decent paying jobs, right, out there that we can kind of help the population look to, train and go into. So I'm guessing there's it's good that there are these opportunities and there is these vacancies out there in these good jobs, right?
Yeah, so I mean that's this whole I think there are opportunities for good paying jobs, but there's coordination issues. So on the one hand, there's a skill shift, right? So someone who may want to enter healthcare, well, they might be working as a fresh business major out of college, been working in an accounting firm for a while, and so that skill shift has to take place. And so that's where programs like Good Jobs Hawaii comes in, where they have these things where you can get your feet wet to enter different high-paying careers. I'm so sorry, I just lost my train of thought. What was the
No.
question again?
No, no, no. It's just that there's opportunities here, but you make a great point in that I think a lot of people, once you start heading down a career field, the further you get, it's like it's so hard to change course, and you kind of get stuck in this identity, and you think, well, I'm a business major. This is I got to find a job, and
Yeah,
really hard to make that shift and say, well, there's this opportunity here in healthcare. I didn't
yeah.
initially thought I'd go that way, but let me take advantage of it, right?
Yeah, and I think too there's also employers out there that do have a need for workers, and so I think the future of what education could look like is a little bit more coordination between the employers and the pipeline of students that we're putting out there. So thinking about what exactly are the skills that are valued in today's workforce, I mean, segue into the next thing or another thing we're going to talk about, which is AI, right?
Hmm.
A lot of things, new technology is changing the game of what's important to an employer now. And so making sure that the things that we're teaching our students actually prepares them for the labor force to get a good job in an industry that has a good career path that is desirable for them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's all interesting, and that is a great segue. So now let's jump into what research shows about the value of college in the AI era. And I have a lot to say here. And it's all just opinion based. You're the one doing the research and looking at these things. But to me, the AI thing is the most fascinating thing going on. It will define, the time period we're living in.
Mhm.
But it's really hard to say what exactly it all once the dust settles, what will that have been? Will it be this massive transformative thing that, things are just completely, we flip the board over, the pieces are off, and it's just this whole new start? Or is it just a kind of an acceleration of what we've already been doing, and it's just a tool that continues on? So I have a lot to say, but yeah, if you want to kind of just talk about what the research shows.
Yeah, sure. So I myself am not, the person that is like looking super deeply into doing AI research, right? I'm only speculating based on what economists are putting out there about potential. And the potential effects of AI are pretty widespread, actually. There's all these different camps. You have like tech moguls saying, oh my God, it's going to be a huge transformation to the labor market. People are going to be losing their jobs. And on the other hand, you have other camps saying, well, it's not so much that people are losing their jobs, it's more so about changing the way we work and, changing our productivity levels. And so I'd like to think it'd be something in between. I think that the impact of AI is going to have a larger employment effect on some industries and less so on others. Um, but I do think there is some merit to what people are saying in the camp of, well, I don't know that it'll totally displace everyone and take away everyone's job, but it will definitely change the way that we work. And we're already starting to see that shift. So far, early estimates are showing that artificial intelligence isn't cutting employment as of right now. But we are seeing that employers are taking AI into consideration. So we're seeing a huge jump in, if you look at job postings data, what employers are seeking, AI is now listed as a skill in way more job postings than before. So that is just skyrocketing, which is indicative of people are using different AI tools like LLMs, agentic AI in their workforce today. And especially in, like tech heavy sectors, professional, technical business services sectors, that's where we're seeing AI being used most heavily. Here in Hawaii, that industry is smaller, so I would imagine that AI would have a smaller effect, although it's non-zero,
Right.
There it is impacting us. Um, but I can't perfectly predict the future. So
Sure. And that kind of gets to my one of the points I wanted to make around this is and I'm sure you deal with this a lot as an economist, is and I deal with this when I, maybe have conversations about the stock market, right? And investing.
yeah,
Once you start entering this really speculative world of what ifs,
yeah,
you can find yourself drowning in it, and
yeah,
it's really just a guess. And with that, if you have to take a course of action, knowing that there's all this hyperbole and speculation, all you can do is really go off of where we are and then historical data, because otherwise
right.
you're making assumptions on what you should do. And the other point I thought about when I looked at this, the value of college in the AI era is, at least for the undergraduate degree, a bachelor's degree provides a lot of value beyond just knowing facts,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you're learning, discipline. You're learning how to manage deadlines. You're learning, accountability, different things. And all that, adds to the value beyond just, well, I know all these facts and why I don't need to know it because AI can do it.
Hmm.
Um, and I always say, like in my field of financial advising, retirement planning, there's the CFP, the Certified Financial Planner.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
not a perfect system, but for the most part, it's recognized as the gold standard in the industry, right?
Hmm.
Now,
Yeah,
you definitely don't need the CFP to be a really good financial planner, just like you might not need a college degree to be really good in a given field.
yeah,
But what it shows, it demonstrates that you cared enough about the field to put in the time, put in the academic course load, and come out the other end, right? And so for somebody who's maybe an employer or just an individual trying to evaluate somebody, yeah, it's not a perfect system, and maybe it's not necessary, but it at least provides some sort of box to check to say, well, I know they're at least serious enough about whatever it might be to at least take this step, right?
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, so I mean, obviously this isn't a data point, but I think college, just anecdotally speaking, is not just a signal. So there's two camps of what college does for you. There's the a signal to the employer that lets the employer know like, hey, I'm a competent person. I can finish something that I start. And then there's the human capital accumulation. So this is saying like, oh, I accumulated all this knowledge through my coursework, and now I have the knowledge to bring to the workforce, right? So there's two things that economists typically talk about. But I think one of the other benefits of college is just meeting people that you probably and having to work with people that you probably wouldn't have to work with or meet on your own. Like when I went to college on the mainland, I came across people from the East Coast, from other countries and other states that I've never met a person from Wisconsin or Iowa before, right? And so you're meeting all different kinds of personalities and cultures, and I think that just expands your mind too and helps you to mature during your young 18 to 22-year-old,
Sure.
yeah, stage of life. Um, But I mean, in relation to AI, I think college is still important because I mean, I think what's going to have to happen, and probably what is happening, is that people are going to have to learn to use AI to work, right? And I think that's where education comes into play, is like, right now, as an economist, I'm using AI every day to do my work. And so for the new person who wants to be an economist one day, they're going to need to learn how to use AI in their work too, right? If not, at this point, they'll be behind if they don't know how to use AI to write code or to write research papers or
Mhm.
to help you with whatever it may be. And so I think that's where the future of college is headed, is not avoiding AI altogether, but how do we incorporate that into our education system to further prepare our kids for the future?
Yeah, and you going through the academic rigor, your a PhD, right, in economics, you have the knowledge to understand the prompts and the incorrect, and you can filter the way you interact with AI, right? And so without
Yeah.
having that general knowledge and understanding, it's really hard going from zero economic background and saying, well, I have AI, I'm going to be I
Yeah.
could be my own economist. It's like without having that, you got to go through it. You got to read, you got to learn, and that way you can pick out the errors or you can adjust the prompts to come to a better, conclusion, right?
Yeah. I mean, at least in my field, I think AI is it more so helps me. It's a complementary skill really to the other skills that I mean I have. But I think so I teach a class called the Economy of Hawaii, and I allow students to use AI to help them write essays. It's a essay based course. And I noticed that when they first start writing essays in the class, they use AI and they have no idea what they're doing. Because I'm reading their essays and I'm like, okay, I can tell this is like AI generated and tells me no information. It's so vague, right? And so by the end of their course, then they kind of get it. They realize like, oh, okay, AI is more so like a pretty decent research assistant for me, and it can't replace what I'm doing. I need to figure out how to use it to my advantage. And so by the end of the class, then they're able to write better essays because of AI, but also because of their own brain and knowledge and what they're learning and doing.
Sure. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine what is happening, the amount of AI use by like your average undergraduate college
Yeah,
student.
that's another, I think certain other departments where, back in the day, I think I took management or something, and it was almost all just memorizing terms for my finals. So I don't know how those professors are doing it now, where you have like AI can, answer multiple choice questions for you, right?
Right, right,
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know what they're doing for those types of courses, or for like I can't even imagine like history classes.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my favorite classes were always the ones where I forgot I was in the class for a grade, right? It's just you're there and you're like, wow, I never thought of that, or they made us read this, and that really changed the way I thought about things. And the grade is kind of, ancillary to like opening your eyes and critical thinking and all that. It's all
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah.
So let's touch on how about I saw this one as well. Which college majors pay the most uh in Hawaii and I guess in the US? So for any young listeners or anybody out there with nieces and nephews or children, what is uh what is the career trajectory that will have the greatest payout in Hawaii right now?
I like that was a fun blog to write, but I hate it at the same time, because just because it tells you this is what the median worker with this major is making in Hawaii doesn't mean you shouldn't do it if you're interested in it, right? Um,
Right.
but in general, it does tell us about the greater labor market schemes in Hawaii, which is that our healthcare workers, so I think RNs, are getting paid like third highest in the nation. And so that kind of reflects in the data, is that the UH grads that came out that are in the data, we're seeing that if they had like a health focused major, they're making the most on average compared to the other majors. And then on the other hand, computer science majors in the mainland, they're making a ton. But in Hawaii, they're earning like over 20 grand less, I think, 20 to 30 grand less on average. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, it kind of just matches what we're seeing in the mainland data, which is, the econ majors, the business majors, the healthcare majors are earning substantially more. I also wanted to point out that, I mean, mostly I love to point this out because my husband is a trades worker, proud HCC grad. But our trades workers are also, I feel like, so underestimated. These are really high paying careers, and people that are going into trades in the community college programs are coming out earning almost as much as people with bachelor's degrees. And so that's also a area that, could be potential for people to go into.
Yeah, and I feel like there was a period in our society, like throughout the country, maybe in the 90s or the early 2000s, where or I mean, and even before, I'm sure in the 80s, 70s, that's before my time period, but where we did kind of diminish the value of somebody entering into these trades, and we kind of raised the
Mhm.
value of the college degree. And
Yeah.
there's nothing inherently wrong with it, but I do feel like, and maybe this is just in my walks or what's coming across my feed, I feel like that sentiment is for sure shifting over the past however many years, and it is. I think people are very keen to not make a trades route, a lesser than option, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting because so there's a data set called occupational prestige scores. And so for every occupation, it's based on a survey of people and how prestigious they think an occupation is. Um, and electricians, that's a really high paying career, not just in Hawaii, but in other places as well. And their prestige score is pretty low, like a lot lower than other occupations, like teachers, like economists, car salesmen, other things. Um, and so that kind of just tells you, right, the sign of the times, like, you know, these are really high paying careers. They're pretty technical. They require schooling plus like a 5-year apprenticeship program in the unions here. And so these are really high skilled workers, and yet society is ranking them as having low prestige in their occupation. But I think you're right. Like, I think the times are changing and that people are starting to see higher values in trades, and rightfully so.
Yeah, and I guess the whole trades profession is changing in certain areas. Like I think of in the mechanic field, if you're an auto mechanic now, I mean, you're wearing a college shirt and learning how to operate computers within these Teslas, and it's not this stereotypical I'm just turning wrenches here. It's like there's
Yeah.
the trades are changing in themselves. Okay, one last thing here I want to touch on is so I saw this on UHERO. There was this
Okay.
the Hawaii Housing Factbook, and I thought it was
Oh,
pretty
yes.
interesting. Is this so I saw one I think for the past couple years. Is this a annual recurring like
Yeah.
work?
Yeah. Your timing's funny. We're working on the 2026 fact book now, and so we're gonna release it hopefully within the next month. Um, but yeah, so I think we started doing this in 2023 or something like that. But our fact book is an annual release. We release data points that looks at every single zip code in Hawaii, and we have things on like the percentage of people that are spending 30% or more of their income on rent, median home prices, various demographic informations. And so what we do is we just kind of give a landscape of where the housing market is, highlighting certain areas in Hawaii that are particular standouts in good ways and bad ways. And then just talk about some research and hot topics. Like one of my colleagues did a study on the housing ladder. I don't know. Are you familiar with the housing ladder?
Oh no, what is the housing ladder?
Okay, so it's basically this idea that if you build, like, let's say an apartment building, Um, the people who move into this new apartment building that was freshly built will vacate their house. Someone else will move up into their house. Someone else will move into their house,
Hmm.
and so on. And so when you create new housing, then it creates this ladder where people are able to move up into this and basically get like a upgrade in housing, and this
Okay.
frees up more housing supply, and also theoretically should reduce home prices at a greater scale. So that's something that we're going to be featuring in this new release of the fact book.
Interesting. Yeah, housing is and has been a hot topic, a big issue that like all this stuff is nuanced and there's no clear and easy way to just solve it, in the short term.
Yeah.
But I love the fact book because at least for those listeners who are interested, you can actually go see, year over year what the data is showing for Hawaii's housing.
Yeah, and then I think the thing about the fact book that a lot of people like is that it's zip code level data. And so, we got an email from someone on the Big Island saying like, "Hey, you guys report Big Island statistics all the time, but Hilo and Kona are two totally different markets." Like everyone
Mhm.
says, "Oh, Big Island home prices are so cheap." But if you look at Big Island, it's only in the east side, not in Kona side, right? And so that's something good about the fact book is you can see like how Hawaii Kai is doing and how their prices change from last year versus Waimea or Lahaina.
Gotcha. Yeah, very cool that it can dial it down that way. And I'll be interested to see the latest version when it comes out here shortly then. Rachel, thanks so much for coming on. It's been a great talk. Anything else you'd like to share? Any topics we haven't touched on?
Um, no, not really. That's about it. Yeah.
Okay, well, I appreciate you coming on, Dr. Rachel Inafuku with UHERO. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
The opinions and statements presented on this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations. Never make any investment or financial decisions based on information offered on this show without first consulting your financial, legal, or tax advisor. All economic and performance information mentioned on the show is historical in nature and is not indicative of any future results. All indices mentioned on this show are unmanaged and cannot be invested in directly. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. Lastly, all opinions expressed by Jason Cutitta and any guests on the show are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of or are endorsed by Toba Financial. For Jason Cutitta, investment advisory services are offered through Toba Financial LLC, a registered investment advisor offering advisory services in the state of Hawaii and in other jurisdictions where exempt from registration.